So we're going to be talking about gut health today. I'm Dr. 𝘂𝘁 $𝘂𝗶𝗵𝗹𝗹𝗹. I'm the medical director at Live Your Best Life, which is a startup about to launch that is going to help people democratize holistic healthcare. What does that mean? That means there are a lot of people who, when they get sick, feel like the only option that they have is to go to the hospital or the clinic and see the mainstream medical doctor. But then they find out from a friend, a family, or someone else that that person got cured of their condition by using things outside the mainstream medical system. And they say, hey, how do I get some of that? Sometimes they feel that they don't have the right to it or that their insurance won't cover it and they just don't know enough. But others who have grown up with it or are health seekers, as many of you are, as I am, have realized that there's a lot of options outside of modern medicine. And in fact, there's an entire universe of specialists known as holistic health specialists. And they include people from diverse fields like osteopathy, acupuncture, Ayurveda, and yoga. Live Your Best Life is taking the best of those, starting with Ayurveda and yoga. We have a team of 25 clinicians who've gotten together and created the best of our recommendations when we see patients. And so today we're going to be talking about gut health. So with us is one of the members of our 25 clinicians who is actually the head of the clinical, we can say the conditions team, where we're going to be talking about 120 conditions that we feel expert enough in between the 25 of us that we're going to be able to help you. Gut health is so important. Ayurveda says 80% of all diseases start with the gut. Dr. Lula has been working with the gut issues, not only as a BAMS undergraduate, which is an Ayurvedic doctor's degree, but through his master's and through his PhD. Dr. Lula is clinical director at Live Your Best Life, and he leads a clinical strategy in the development of personalized holistic therapies that integrate Ayurveda, yoga, nutrition, lifestyle, and evidence-based formulations that we all are creating for you, knowing that these are the things you like and don't like taste or convenience, but keeping them authentic to Ayurveda. And we're really proud of these formulations because we've tested each one of them in our clinic, gone back to the lab, back and forth until we've gotten them right. And we have many of them that are actually on its way to us, coming from the factories and the forests, and they should be arriving in Los Angeles soon, and then we'll be able to dispense them. Dr. Lula is part of that effort, and his role includes designing the research protocols as well as managing the team of the online Ayurvedic medicine experts. His own expertise includes developing integrative treatment models, leveraging artificial intelligence for precision clinical decision trees that we are using and executing clinical trials. I do want to say that we actually use actual intelligence to put together our clinical experience and what we think would work. And then we use the artificial intelligence to decide between the data that come in around patients and how they're doing of how we could better serve them. So our clinical decisions are pure human experience from physicians. Dr. Lula, and I call him doctor because not only is he an Ayurvedic physician licensed in India, but he also has a PhD. Dr. Lula practices in Chennai, India, at his Ayurvedic center with a focus on gut health, musculoskeletal disorders, and rheumatology. His MD is in something called 𝘄𝗏 𝘁, which is roughly equivalent, not equivalent, but equated to internal medicine. And his PhD focused on rheumatology and gut. He has more than a decade of clinical and research experience, and he brings ancient wisdom to validation with modern science. He's an active educator. He delivers lectures at institutions around the world, and he promotes the knowledge and practice of Ayurveda. He's also been to America several times, and he will be coming again soon to our center in LA. So he'll be talking to us today about gut health, and then we'll be taking some questions and answers. And the format is that if you would like to ask questions right now and you have a burning question, please put it in the chat and we'll be monitoring the chat. So with that, I welcome my colleague and my friend, Dr. Abhishek Lula. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much, Dr. 𝘂𝘁. It's a good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for joining on this beautiful Saturday morning. Over the next 30 minutes, your understanding of gut health is going to completely change. And so please do grab a pen and paper and, and prepare yourself to unlearn what you think that you know about your gut. I'll just share my screen. So before I begin, I would first want you to meet Jason. Jason is a 37-year-old engineer who works at a fintech company in the Bay Area and loves to work out at the gym. He visited our center with symptoms of acid reflux, a burning sensation in his stomach, nausea, sore throat, and a dry cough. But before visiting us, he visited a lot of Ayurvedic doctors and allopathic doctors, and they diagnosed him to have GERD. So after doing a bunch of tests, endoscopies, colonoscopies, they put him on antacids or proton pump inhibitors. However, he found only temporary relief. So the first thing that we did when Jason did visit us at a center is we tried to understand what his daily routine was and tried to understand what his lifestyle. And there were loads and loads of red flags. The first thing, he had a lot of irregular sleep patterns. He was sleeping very late in life. There was a lot of stress because of the layoffs happening in his companies. And since he was sleeping late, he was eating a lot of late night snacks and was drinking just too much coffee. Since he was a gym enthusiast, he would have a protein-rich diet, which often at times he would not be able to digest. And he loved drinking cold water. So Jason was a walking red flag. The first thing that we did is we identified the root cause and we asked him to do the reverse. Because in Ayurveda, the first principle of treatment is to identify and reverse any root cause of a condition. Then our management was a fourfold management where we focus on his stress by yoga and breath work, by giving him 𝗵𝗲 and Ujjayi breathing. We changed his diet. We cut down the junk, the processed foods. We cut down the caffeine. We included a lot of healthy vegetables. We cut down salads. We gave him boiled, cooked vegetables. We asked him to include ghee in his diet. We also asked him to sleep early and incorporated a lot of morning walks. He was in addition put on certain supplements like Alkalizer Plus and Natural Balance and Strength, which we'll be speaking about after a few minutes. And what we saw that in 3 weeks, there was a significant reduction in the dependency of the proton pump inhibitors. In about 6 weeks, there was an improvement in the frequency and the intensity of the symptoms. And in 12 weeks, he was able to stop all his medicines and supplements and had a healthy lifestyle. So what you'll get to learn today is first starting off with what is gut. We'll be speaking about two of the common conditions that we see, which is acid reflux and IBS. Then we'll be speaking about why integration is important and what is the Ayurvedic understanding of the gut. And lastly, we'll be speaking on certain herbs, yoga, and diet that you can incorporate in your practice. All right. So first, what is the gut? The gut is the tract which starts from the mouth, goes up to the esophagus, to the stomach, to the intestine, and ends right in your rectum and anus. So we all have been taught that the gut has one function, which is digestion, absorption, and excretion. But that is not. The gut has loads of other functions, and I'll be speaking about three of them today. We all use certain phrases like our gut feeling. Now, why do we say gut feeling? Why don't we say, why don't we use any other organ? Why don't we say a lung feeling? Why don't we say a liver feeling? We call it a gut feeling because there are 500 million neurons in the gut. And the gut is the second brain. And the gut and the brain are very closely connected, and this is called as the gut-brain axis. The second is the gut is a reservoir of a lot of microbes. And these microbes could be good microbes and bad microbes. And when you have a balance of this good versus bad, when you have more good microbes, that is when you have a healthy gut. And this is called as a microbiota balance. And the last is the gut also helps in immune function. So please raise your hands If you have felt any of these, if you have abdomen pain, if you've had bloating, if you have a heartburn, if you have constipation or just difficulty or pain while passing stools, I'm sure you're all here today because you have these symptoms. So please don't be shy and do raise your hands because it's high time that we started speaking about our guts. All right, so now that we all know that these are problems which every one of us faces, how common are they? According to MD-VIPs, 2/3 of American adults have some gut issue, right from acid reflux to irritable bowel syndrome to inflammatory conditions like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. About 20% of the population in the US have acid reflux, and about 10 to 15% of adolescents have IBS, and this is about 20% in the college-going group. So out of five people, at least one have a problem of IBS or acid reflux. So let's see what is the common understanding of these gut conditions. Acid reflux, if you were to put it down in simple words, is basically an inflammation of the gut, which could be an inflammation of the esophagus, inflammation of the stomach, which is called gastritis. But in Ayurveda, we call it something called 𝗵𝗲𝗶, which is an increase in the body heat or the pitta dosha, which could be because of wrong diet, because of lifestyle or stress. And IBS, whereas is something which is where people have an abdominal discomfort, you have altered bowel motions, sometimes you can have diarrhea, sometimes you can have constipations, or some individuals have alternating between diarrhea and constipation. And this is caused because of a disturbance in the gut-brain axis. In Ayurveda, this is called as 𝘄𝗂, which is a digestive disorder because of a weak Agni. Now, when you ask me, what is the word Agni? The Agni is the digestive fire. The digestive fire which transforms the process of enzymes responsible for physiological functions like digestion, absorption, and metabolism. And 80 to 90% of diseases start from the gut. All autoimmune conditions of any inflammatory origin have an origin in the gut. And the weak digestion is one of the most common reasons for a lot of diseases, a lot of conditions that we see today. So what are the options available? I'm sure that you all have taken these. When you have acidity, you pop in an antacid, you have a Gaviscon. When you have diarrhea, you take Imodium. When you have spasms, you take an antispasmodic, or the worst, you take antidepressants like Lexapro. But these do not address the root cause. They only suppress the symptoms. And they have a lot of side effects, which include habit forming. You miss a pill, and what happens? The symptoms come back. So how do we address the root cause? Before we go into the root cause, you need to understand, what does Ayurveda speak about your gut type? Our universe, all beings, including humans, are made up of 5 fundamental matters, which is air, water, fire, earth, and ether. And these form 3 doshas, what are functional elements. So before we go into this, I want you all to take a quick assessment of just 3 questions. So if you can open your chat, there is a link. I would give you all 2 minutes to answer this question. And once you're done, please let me know.
And while we're waiting for those 2 minutes, do you want to take 1 or 2 questions?
Absolutely, we could do that.
Great. So I see Chitra has her hand up. Hi, Chitra. Do you have a question? You can unmute, I think. Maybe Chitra cannot unmute. Do we have that capacity set up for everyone? Okay,
there is
maybe.
one question from Gauri, where she asks, what is the Ayurvedic term for GERD? Is it 𝗵𝗲𝗶? Yes. 𝗵𝗲𝗶 is the closest correlation to acid reflux in GERD.
So I hope all of you have clicked on that form. There's 3 questions, really simple. And these are anonymous, by the way. We cannot track these because, as you all know, this is a Google survey. So we'll just get the aggregate results. We won't be able to say, okay, so-and-so, 𝗵𝗲 said this, or Neetu said that, or Rosie said this. We will just get the aggregate. So the first question about your appetite and how well you're digesting your food, you should be able to answer that pretty quickly. How are your bowel movements? Very personal question. That's why it's anonymous. And so you can answer that as well. And if you go back and forth, which is not one of the choices, you're prone to constipation or you tend to have loose bowels, think about what is more there. If you go back and forth, which one tends to predominate? And does that change? Well, pick one, and then we'll talk about both of them. And then which of the following symptoms disturb you? Bloating, heartburn, sluggishness, none of these, right? So these are easy questions. Please go ahead and finish up. Dr. Abhishek, do you want to continue?
Absolutely. So I think we are getting a good number of responses. I can look at the responses, and what I can say is that we have a varied response. All those who have clicked the first option, that shows that you have a Vata predominant gut type. So in Ayurveda, as I said, that there are 3 different bioenergies, which are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And all those who have chosen the first option, where you have a variable appetite, you are more prone to be constipated, have a Vata predominance, where those who have a tendency to have loose bowels, who have a really good appetite, are mostly have a Pitta gut type, and those who have soft stools, well-formed stools, but have a low appetite and still have a good nutrients absorption and well-built, they have a Kapha predominance. So now, if all those who have selected out of the 3 questions, at least 2 first answers, you have a Vata predominance. If you have selected at least 2 of the second answer, you have a Pitta predominance. And if you have selected at least 2 of the third question, you have a Kapha predominance. So now that we know that every individual is different, we cannot have a one-size-fits-all approach. We need to have different approaches based on your body type, based on your gut type. And the second thing is, we do not have a one-size-fitting integration. Integration is important because we need a multi-system approach to identify the root cause. For example, the best way that we have seen that where we can have an improvement in stress reductions and an improvement in the gut-brain axis is through yoga, meditation, pranayama, whereas diet plays a very important role in correcting your Agni or the gut microbe dysbiosis. And we also need to ensure that there is a prevention, because a lot of times issues like acid peptic conditions, acid reflux, IBS tend to recur if we do not take the precaution. So preventive care is as important. So let's talk about the Ayurvedic approach for acid reflux. So there are 4 major things that I want to highlight. The first thing is, when you have acid reflux, we need to restore the GI mucosa, because there is inflammation in the gut. There could be inflammation anywhere in the esophagus or the stomach. We need to ensure that our foods that we eat do not irritate the stomach lining and help to soothe the stomach lining. Second is, we need to correct the gut microbe dysbiosis by including certain drinks, for example, a diluted buttermilk. So a diluted buttermilk is when you take yogurt, you add a lot of water, churn it till the fat comes out, and this alkaline drink is what is called as a buttermilk. And the last is for prevention of recurrence. We have certain herbs in Ayurveda, which is called rasayana. For example, with amla or gooseberry, which helps in preventing the recurrence of acid reflux. The same goes for IBS. The first thing is to identify the root cause. And in IBS, it's mostly a combination of stress, a lot of psychological causes, And, and this is what causes an impairment in the gut-brain axis. Second is to restore a healthy digestion. Most people who have an IBS have a very sluggish digestion, and we need certain herbs, for example, cumin or coriander, which will stimulate the digestive fire. We need to again restore the gut microbes by adding certain fruits like pomegranate. Pomegranate is one such fruit which actually really helps patients with IBS, and it helps to restore the gut microbe. And the last, most important, is to prevent the recurrence. So here are some things that I would want all of you all to do. The first thing that you need to do is you need to get a good 6 to 8 hours of sleep. For those who have an acid reflux, you can elevate your head by using 2 pillows. The second thing is do not skip meals. It's ideal to maintain a 2 to 3 hour gap between your meals, and it's really important to eat your meal only after the previous meal has been digested. And it's very important to have either lukewarm water or boiled and cool water. And even if you have acid reflux, you may feel like having a glass of cold water, cold juice, but please don't do it, because that is going to give you temporary relief. A glass of cold milk or cold water is going to give you temporary relief, but it's not going to address the root cause. And what you need to avoid is staying up late at night. Like how Jason did, if you do sleep really late, there have been studies which shows that the circadian rhythm actually causes inflammation if you stay up late at night. And when you sleep early, the inflammation comes down. The second thing is to avoid late night snacking, sleeping after a heavy meal, and avoiding a lot of triggers like smoking, alcohol, and caffeine. The second question what people ask me is what and how should I eat? Ayurveda speaks about a very simple concept of eating when you're hungry. You need to eat slowly and chew your food. And for any gut problems, add probiotics and prebiotics, for example, buttermilk, which I just explained. We can also use spices, for example, cumin, ginger, coriander, and you can have small, frequent meals. The things you need to avoid when you have acid reflux are anything which is deep fried, spicy, sour, too much of salt intake. You also need to cut down on processed foods, on reheated foods, on your cold cut meats, and foods which are really difficult to digest. When you have a weak gut, eat foods which are easy to digest so that the entire process becomes easier. And if there are any triggers, if you have noticed any triggers, for example, some people are lactose intolerant, some people have gluten sensitivities, it's important to identify the trigger and avoid any of the triggers which can worsen your condition. So to begin with, we start with the elimination diet, where we ask anyone with an acid reflux or IBS to cut down any milk products and gluten or any other triggers that they may have. In Ayurveda, we also have a concept of incompatible foods. For example, I see a lot of people in the US who love to have a smoothie for breakfast. What do? You take milk, you add some vegetables, you eat fruits, and you add fruits, and you put it in a blender and you get a healthy smoothie. But is that really healthy? No, it's not. Ayurveda says it's very important to have your fruits separately. Do not mix fruits with vegetables, or do not mix your fruits with milk. Because when you were to mix fruits with milk, what happens is that the milk can get curdled and can form a substance which is called in Ayurveda 𝗪, which is undigested food. And going and mixing the foods which are incompatible can cause a lot of gut issues. The second example I can give is mixing dairy with seafood. If you're having a fish, if you're having any seafood, please ensure you do not mix any sort of dairy to that meal. So, what are certain things that you can do? In your kitchen, we all have certain spices. I'm going to give you 3 simple teas that you can do. Based on the questionnaire assessment that we did a few minutes earlier, if you have chosen the option A, as I said, you have a Vata gut type, the best tea to have is a cumin tea, which is basically you can take half a spoon of cumin, add it to a glass of water and boil it. And after that, you can, after filtering it, have it lukewarm. If you have the second type, which is a pitta type, which is an increase in body heat, you can do the same with coriander seeds. And if you have indigestion, if you just have bloating, you don't have a good appetite, or if you have a kapha type of an imbalance, you can have a ginger tea. Well, if you're unsure what to do, the easiest thing to do is have a CCFT where you mix cumin, coriander, and fennel. And this is one recipe I would ask everyone to do if you're feeling bloated, if you have a lot of heartburn, or if you just do not have a good appetite. So, the second thing which people ask me is, what can I take to help with my acid reflux? I'm going to speak about a few commonly seen herbs and Ayurvedic supplements which you can take. The first is a conch shell, which basically can, in Ayurveda, we make it into a powder of bhasma. And this is one of the best sources of calcium and also helps in neutralizing acid secretion and has anti-ulcer activities. It also strengthens the esophageal sphincter. And the second is cumin. Cumin is one of the best appetizers. It stimulates the digestive enzymes in patients or in those people who have an H. pylori infection. It actually helps to bring down the H. pylori load. It helps in reducing gas and bloating. So anytime you feel full, you feel bloated, the best thing to do is have some cumin boiled water. The third food item which I would recommend is raisins. So raisins is a natural prebiotic. It helps in smooth bowel peristalsis. So if anyone has a problem of going to the toilet, you feel a little constipated, you could either have raisins or you can have prunes, and raisins can be soaked overnight for a better absorption. For those who have irregular bowels, the first food item which I would recommend, as I said earlier, are pomegranate. So pomegranate helps in soothing the entire gut mucosa. It is a prebiotic and it enhances nutrient absorption. So if there is one food item with anyone who has frequent bowels or irregular bowels, I would tell them to have one pomegranate a day. Just remember, a pomegranate a day will keep IBS at bay. The second thing is licorice. So licorice helps in reducing gut inflammation and it increases mucus production. It also helps to regulate the stress response. So as we spoke, IBS, there is a gut-brain relationship. So certain foods like licorice not only help to heal the gut, it also helps to bring down the stress levels. Now coming to yoga. So yoga, I would want to divide this into three parts. The first are yoga asanas or postures. A lot of yoga asanas, which are used for acid reflux or gut problems, for example, a spinal twist, how they work is that they improve the blood circulation and their movement around the abdominal region. And as a result, there is a stimulation in appetite, your Agni increases, and it also helps in promoting the bowels regularity. The second is breathing exercises or breathing techniques. For example, Ujjayi breathing helps to increase the diaphragmatic tone, thus reducing the acid reflux, and it also helps to regulate the autonomic nervous system. And third is meditation, for example, Yoga Nidra, which helps to reduce stress, helps to calm down a person, and helps in restoring the gut-brain axis. And last, in a nutshell, I just want to conclude by saying a healthy gut is a healthy you. You need to identify what are the triggers. It could be diet, could be stress, could be anything which you are doing in your day-to-day life, because understanding the trigger is what is going to solve your problem. The third thing is that instead of relying on short-term, quick-term effects, it is best to change your lifestyle, change your diet, and use herbs or kitchen spices which are found in a kitchen to help to restore your gut. And consistency matters. Small changes done on a day-to-day basis is what will bring long-term results. You can take an antacid and get an immediate relief, but only once you change your lifestyle, you will be able to prevent the recurrence. So for acid reflux, the Basic concept what I explained earlier is that there's a lot of body heat or pitta, and we need to calm and cool the body by using herbs, yogas, and diets, which helps to restore the gut mucosa. In IBS, it's basically because of a weak digestion or a weak Agni, and we need certain herbs like cumin and pomegranate, which will help the Agni or the digestive fire and also strengthen it. So with that, I would like to hand over to Dr. Vaswati.